He was only 3 tables down, and my dead father's hat was peeking from his saddlebag like a flag of betrayal. I'd spent 5 long years tracking the man I believed shot my pa, and there he sat, quiet as a Sunday morning, nursing a whiskey in Milfield's lone saloon. I was hunched over my own glass when I saw it, the brown leather band with the silver concho my mother stitched on their anniversary. No doubt about it. My father wore that hat every day until they fished him out of Devil's Creek with 3 holes in his back. My fingers began to shake not from fear, but from a rage I'd carried like a hot coal for half a decade. I squeezed my tumbler so hard it nearly cracked. Every muscle in me said, draw the Colt, finish it here and now. But something checked me. Maybe it was his easy posture, no glancing over the shoulder, no twitch of a hunted man. The paper in my coat pocket read, wanted, dead, or alive. Jack Morrison, 500. But the fellow before me didn't match the cold-blooded devil I'd pictured all these years. Sun-beaten skin, gray in his beard, eyes tired from too much living. Still, that hat, my father's hat, was proof enough. The place swelled with miners off shift, their noise a thick wall that could hide anything about to happen. This could be quick. End it. Take the bounty. Give my father peace. I rose slowly, my palm drifting toward my gun. Crossing the plank floor felt like slogging through mud. My heart hammered, so loud I thought it would drown out the piano. When I stood close enough to smell the tobacco in his coat, I spoke. That's a fine hat you got there, friend. He lifted his eyes to mine, not scared, just sad, like he'd been waiting for this hour. Figured someone would recognize it sooner or later. The words knocked the wind from me. He wasn't denying it. He wasn't even surprised. He didn't grab for steel. He just looked at me with something like relief. You're Jack Morrison. Not a question. He nodded. I am. And I'm guessing you're Daniel Crawford's boy. Hearing my father's name in his mouth boiled my blood. You murdered him. He glanced at the poster truth I'd carried for years. That's what the flyers say. He took a calm swallow, steady as a fence post. But before you put a hole in me, son, you ought to hear what really happened that morning. I drew and pressed the barrel against his temple. Half the room hushed. The other half was too drunk to care. Give me one reason not to paint the floor with your brains. He stared straight into me, and what I saw wasn't guilt. It was something else, heavy, honest, worn. Because your father died trying to save my life, not the other way around. My finger tightened, then froze. The room tilted. You're lying, I said, but my voice wasn't certain anymore. He sat still with a gun on his skull, like he'd made peace with the end. Your pa found me half dead by Devil's Creek. 3 men had chased me for 2 days. When they caught me, Daniel could have ridden off and left me to them. My arm trembled with the urge to finish it. 5 years of fury screaming for one squeeze. But the weight in his tone and the wear in those eyes held me back. He didn't know me, Morrison went on, hushed and raw. But when he saw those men beating me senseless, he stepped in, drew, and told them to leave me be. The buzz of the saloon faded to a distant hum. All I could hear was my own blood rushing. Then why do you have his hat? Why are there wanted posters with your face? His jaw set. Because the 3 men who killed your father work for Sheriff Clemens. And Clemens has been telling folks I pulled the trigger. My world pitched. Sheriff Clemens was the one who told me my father was found dead. He handed me the first poster with Morrison's picture. He pushed me to bring the man to death. That's not possible, I said, but my voice cracked. Your father died protecting a stranger, Morrison said, and I've been hunted ever since so. The truth never sees daylight. He reached into his coat, slow, ignoring the barrel at his head, and pulled a small leather pouch. My mother's tobacco pouch. The one my father carried every day. The one that should have been buried with him. He gave me this before he died, Morrison said. Told me to put it in his boy's hand if it came to it. Said he was proud of the man you were becoming. His voice had gravel in it, full of years of carrying a burden. I've kept it safe, hoping to find you. My gun hand shook. Everything I knew was crumbling. Before I could speak, the doors slammed open. Sheriff Clemens stepped in, pistol already up, 3 deputies at his shoulders. He spotted Morrison, then me, my weapon still at his head. "Well now," the sheriff said with a winter-cold grin. "Looks like young Crawford found our fugitive. Step aside, boy. He's got an appointment with the noose." Morrison went pale at the sight of Clemens, and the sheriff's hand drifting toward his own iron told me all I needed to know. The real killer had just walked in. Time slowed. The lawman who'd comforted me after my father's death, who'd handed me that poster, who'd fed the fire of revenge. He was the one behind it. I said, "Step away, Crawford," Clemens barked, voice hardening. His men were ready to draw. "This man's dangerous." I didn't move. My gun still touched Morrison's head, but my mind was sprinting. If Morrison spoke true, the last 5 years were built on a lie. And if Clemens was dirty, we were both as good as dead. Morrison's voice came low. "Your father learned about Clemens' racket, cattle rustling, claim jumping, murder for hire. Daniel planned to expose him." Ice ran through me. My father had been strange those last weeks, late rides, hushed talks with my mother. He hadn't been distant. He'd been protecting us. "So you killed him," I whispered, try and make sense. "No, son," Morrison said. "Clemens' men did. I was next, but your father died, buying me time to run. I've been hiding since, hoping to clear both our names." Clemens' patience wore thin. "Last warning, boy. Move, or I'll call it aiding a fugitive." The threat was plain. He couldn't let either of us walk out alive. Lower my gun, and Morrison dies. Keep it up, and we both do. I chose it. In one smooth motion, I swung my pistol off Morrison and leveled it at the sheriff. "I think you're the one who needs to step back." The saloon exploded into chaos, chairs scraping, men diving, glass breaking, whiskey and fear filling the air. Clemens' face twisted. "You foolish kid. You don't know what you're doing." "I do," I said, though my legs felt weak. "I'm protecting the man who tried to save my father." Morrison stood, drawing on the deputies. "3 of them," he said, "and 2 of us." "Those aren't good odds," I muttered, still sighted on Clemens. "Better than your father had," Morrison answered. Clemens laughed, cold as a grave. "Your father died begging, boy. We put those rounds on his back, and he cried like a child." Rage blew through me like dynamite, but before I fired, Morrison clamped my arm. "Don't. He wants you to shoot. The second you do, his men drop us both." He was right. We needed another way. Clemens wasn't giving one. "Kill them," the sheriff snapped to his men. "Make it look like they drew first." The back door crashed open. A figure charged in with a shotgun, my mother. She stood framed in smoke and lamplight like a storm, gray hair wild from a ride, eyes burning. After 5 years of silence, she'd come to speak her piece. "Touch my boy, Marcus Clemens, and I'll spread your guts across this floor." The room froze. Even the piano died mid-note. My mother was gentle and God-fearing, but right then she looked like judgment itself. Clemens turned slowly, shock and a hint of fear on his face. "Helen Crawford. Should have guessed." "You killed my husband," she said, voice steady. "Then you sent my boy chasing an innocent man, hoping he'd die on the trail." My head spun. She knew? All this time? "Ma, why are you here?" I asked. She never looked away from the sheriff. "Heard you'd cornered Morrison in Milfield. Figured it was time the truth was told before you made a mistake you couldn't take back." Morrison, still covering the deputies, spoke. "Mrs. Crawford, your husband was a good man. He died doing what's right." "I know," she said, voice cracking at the edge. "Daniel told me everything before he rode that last morning. The rustling, the killings, what he found. He knew he might not return." Clemens bristled, boxed in and outgunned. "You can't prove a thing, Helen. It's your word against the law." My mother's mouth drew tight. "Not just my word, Marcus. Daniel was smarter than you thought. He wrote it all down, every name, every crime, every dirty dollar." She slid a folded sheet from her coat, never dropping the shotgun. "I've kept this safe for 5 years, waiting for the day I could watch you pay. My father's written confession, his shield and sword. proof to hang Clemens and clear Morrison. The sheriff's eyes moved like a cornered animal tallying bad choices. None ended with him alive. "You're all dead," he hissed. He jerked toward my mother, gun rising. I fired. The blast boomed through the room. Clemens stumbled, clutching his shoulder, his pistol clattering to the floor. The deputies grabbed for steel. Morrison put 2 shots into them quick and clean. The air turned gray with smoke and the stink of gunpowder. Then came the sound that froze my blood. Horses, many, pounding toward the saloon. Morrison heard it too. Clemens' boys. Been waiting outside. My mother lowered the shotgun, looking every bit her 53 years. "A dozen at least, Jack. We can't shoot our way out." Clemens bled on the boards, smiling that dead smile. "Hear that? They'll burn this place down with you inside." My father once taught me something about cornered beasts. Sometimes the only way out is through. He'd said it when I was 12 as we watched a wildfire roll at our ranch. We couldn't outrun it or hide. We rode straight through and lived. Now the saloon was our fire. "Ma, the old mining tunnel behind the saloon, still there?" I asked, eyes on the windows where shadows moved. She nodded. "Sealed a decade, but the entrance remains." Morrison reloaded with quick hands. "How long do we have?" "Not long," I said, hearing men outside take positions. "They'll try smoke first. Then they'll come." My mother clutched the confession. "If this burns, they win. Daniel's death means nothing." I made the hardest choice of my life. We split. "Morrison, you take my mother and that paper. Get to the tunnel. I'll hold them." "Like hell," he growled. "I didn't run 5 years just to let Daniel's boy die." "It's not for you," I said, checking my rounds, 6 left. "It's for him. For the truth." Shouts rose outside. Glass shattered. A firebomb hit the bar, whiskey flaring blue. "Go. Now." I pushed my mother toward the back room. Morrison hesitated. "Your father would never forgive me if... My father would never forgive any of us if his murder goes unpunished." I cut in, grabbing Clemens by his wounded shoulder and hauling him up. He screamed. "Besides, I'm not planning on dying." More bottles smashed through windows. Heat licked the walls. Boots scuffed outside as men moved in. Morrison finally nodded and pulled my mother toward the hidden entrance behind stacked barrels. "Come on, Mrs. Crawford. Let's finish what Daniel started." They slipped away just as the front doors blew wide. 5 men charged, firing. I dove behind the bar, dragging Clemens with me as a shield. "Hold your fire," one shouted. "Sheriff's in there." It took a few seconds. I pressed my gun to Clemens' skull. "You're getting me out alive." He laughed through blood. "You think they care about me? They're here to wipe the slate. All of it." Smoke clawed my lungs. Through the wavering heat, I saw silhouettes settling into place. They weren't planning a capture. They wanted a tomb. The window behind the bar opened onto an alley. If I could reach it, maybe I could circle back and help the others. But first I had to do something that would haunt me. I ground the barrel into Clemens' temple. "Any last words for the man you broke?" He smiled through the pain. "Your father wasn't the saint you think," he rasped. "He was my partner for 2 years before he grew a conscience." The words hit like a fist. "You're lying. Daniel Crawford helped me steal more cattle and rob more claims than any man around." He coughed, blood flecking his lips. "Half the money your man used to feed you came from other folks' ruin." I wanted to pull the trigger, but the flames climbed higher, and I heard my mother and Morrison wrestling the tunnel door. Time was running thin. "He wanted out when things got messy," Clemens said, voice fading. "Started keeping notes to save himself. Insurance, he called it. I called it betrayal." The front wall roared with fire. My eyes watered, but I could still make out the men waiting for the blaze to finish us. They were patient. They knew I couldn't last inside. "Even if that's true," I gritted, "it doesn't excuse what you did." He flashed that dead man's grin. "Your holy father built his place on blood money. Fed you with stolen bread. When he tried to turn on me, I made sure he paid." Something crashed in the back. My mother's voice cut sharp. "The tunnel's blocked. We can't get through." My gut dropped. They were trapped, and so was I. Fire sprinted along the rafters. Minutes, maybe less. Clemens kept talking, trying to stain my memories. You want the truth? Daniel came that morning and begged me to let him run with his family. Said he'd hand over the proof if I let you all vanish. I yanked his shirt, hauling him close. And I told him deals like that end in bullets, he rasped, then coughed hard. But I did let him choose how to die, standing like a man or on his knees like a dog. Fury flooded me. I slammed my fist into his jaw. Blood splattered across the burning floor. He died trying to save Morrison, I growled. He died doing right. He died because he was weak, Clemens spat. And you're about to die because that tunnel? We collapsed it 3 days ago. Been waiting on you so we could finish your family. The building groaned. Beams shifted. Through the smoke, Clemens' men finally pushed in, trusting the fire to do the heavy work. They made one mistake. They believed I'd act like Daniel would, careful, by the book, waiting on a clean chance. But at that moment, I wasn't my father's son. I was my mother's, and she just taught me you sometimes fight fire with fire. I jerked Clemens to his feet and shoved the barrel into his spine. Let's see if your boys really don't care whether you breathe. What came next proved that blood can be thicker than loyalty, and that the worst enemy is often the one you don't expect. I dragged Clemens toward the window when a gunshot cracked from the back room. Not a panic blast, but an executioner's shot. Ice filled my veins. Ma, I yelled, but flames swallowed my voice. Clemens began to laugh, blood trickling down his chin. Did you think she came to save you? Helen's worked for me longer than your father ever did. The words rang wrong, impossible. You're lying. Who do you think told me where Daniel was going that morning? Who made sure he rode alone? He hacked, spitting blood. Your mother's been my eyes for 7 years. The walls shuddered, but all I heard was my own pulse. Through the smoke, a figure stepped from the back. My mother, clothes singed, eyes cold. And behind her, Jack Morrison, wrists bound, a gun shoved into his back. I'm sorry, son, she said, voice flat. Some debts can't be paid with good intentions. My pistol still dug into Clemens, but the room spun. You killed him, I said. You killed your own husband. I saved us from starving, she answered, stepping closer with steady aim. Your father was ready to throw away everything we built. Turn us in for the very crimes that kept food on our table. Morrison, bruised and bleeding, spoke through his teeth. She's played both sides for years, feeding Clemens while pretending to mourn. The ceiling moaned. Burning timbers dropped, sending sparks like angry fireflies. 2 minutes. Maybe less. Why? My voice was barely there. Why betray him? My mother's face hardened like stone. Because Daniel was weak. He cared more for his conscience than for us. Sometimes love means making hard choices. She nodded toward the window. Drop your gun and step away from Marcus. We're leaving together, and then you disappear. I looked at Morrison, hurt but standing. At Clemens, fading but smiling. At my mother, who watched me hunt an innocent man for 5 years while knowing she'd lit the match. I made the choice my father should have made years ago. Instead of letting my gun fall, I swung it toward my mother. No more lies. Don't make me shoot you, she said, and for the first time, fear flickered behind her eyes. Blood or not, I was still her boy. Then don't, I answered, keeping her in my sights, while Morrison used the opening to twist free of his bonds. Tell me why my father really died. The truth came simple and cruel. Your father died because he found out about you. Her voice cracked, revealing the woman who once sang me to sleep. Daniel learned you weren't his. The words hit harder than any bullet. The saloon groaned, flames licking our boots, but I could only stare at the woman who raised me. That's why he started asking questions, not because his heart changed, but because he wanted to know who your real father was. She flicked her eyes toward Clemens. Marcus is your blood. Clemens managed a weak laugh. Wondered when she'd tell you. You've got my eyes, boy. My stubborn streak, too. Everything fell into place in the worst way. My mother's secret dealings. My father's last rides. Her pushing me to chase Morrison, not for justice, but to keep me from digging up the truth. Morrison spoke softly, pity in his tone. Your father loved you anyway, son. Even after he knew. He died to keep you from learning this. The roof began to fold. Beams crashed, sparks hissing on the floor. We had seconds. All these years, I said, my voice hollow. I've been hunting the wrong man. No, Morrison said. You've been hunting the right man, just for the wrong reasons. My mother raised her gun again. I won't let you destroy our family, Daniel. But I wasn't Daniel anymore. Daniel Crawford was the son of a good man who died for the truth. I was the bastard child of a crooked sheriff and a woman who killed for money. I turned my aim on Clemens. It ends here. Wait, my mother cried. He's your father. No, I said, staring straight into her. My father died 5 years ago to shield me from this poison. The man who raised me, that was my real father. I pulled the trigger. Clemens died with that cold smile still on his face. The roof roared down. Morrison grabbed me and yanked me toward the window. We dove through the glass, tumbled into the alley, and gulped clean air while the saloon collapsed behind us. My mother didn't make it out. I heard one last scream, then the fire swallowed her. Morrison and I sat in the dirt for a long time, watching the building burn to coals. When the flames finally settled, he put my father's tobacco pouch into my hand, the only thing that seemed to survive everything. What now? He asked. I looked at the wanted poster, Clemens' blood drying over Morrison's face. Now we tell the truth. All of it. 6 months later, Morrison walked free. My father's written confession cracked the whole rotten chain, and 3 more sheriffs were arrested before it ended. I kept my father's hat and his tobacco pouch, but I let the name Crawford go. Some truths weigh too much to carry. Some families break beyond repair. The price on Jack Morrison's head was lifted, but the cost of knowing who I really was followed me everywhere. Some hunts end in justice. Others end with the hunter wishing he'd never set out. I learned that the most dangerous enemy isn't always the one pointing a gun. Sometimes it's the person who taught you right and wrong, then proved that neither means much when survival's on the table. My father died protecting a stranger because it was right. That's the man whose son I chose to be, blood or no blood. Even after the trials and the reckonings, the town spoke in whispers. Folks argued over what kind of man Daniel Crawford had been, sinner, saint, or something in between. The papers printed pieces of the confession, careful not to feed the flames too high. Morrison stayed clear of crowds and kept his head down, working odd jobs on the edge of town until he could leave for good. People stared when he walked by, then looked away, ashamed they believed the wrong story so long. I sold what was left of the ranch, paid off debts I didn't know we had, and gave quiet money back to families hurt by Clemens and his crew. I wore my father's hat only when I needed the courage it held. Some nights I dreamed of Devil's Creek, the cold water, the 3 bullets, the sky dull and gray. Other nights I saw the saloon, heat on my face, my mother's eyes hard as iron. I woke with my heart pounding and the taste of smoke in my mouth. On the day I left Milfield, I walked to Devil's Creek and laid the tobacco pouch on the bank for a while, letting the wind run over it. I remembered my father's hands, rough from rope and work, teaching me how to sit a horse, how to spot a storm by the smell in the air, how to look a man in the eye when the truth hurt. He wasn't perfect. He made choices I'll never fully forgive. But when it mattered most, he stepped between a dying man and a pack of killers. And when he realized the truth about me, he protected me from it with his life. That's the line I choose to remember. That's the thread I pull tight when the past tries to choke me. I sent copies of the confession to towns up and down the territory, not to shame my father, but to put names to crimes and stop more boys from carrying posters for the wrong men. 3 deputies who'd ridden with Clemens tried to run. The law found them in 2 months. One of them swore Daniel begged at the end. I don't believe him. I can't. Believing that story would break the last good piece I have left. Instead, I hold to a different ending. My father standing tall long enough for Morrison to live. My mother's part sits like a stone in my gut. Some days I hate her. Other days I wish I could ask her one question. If she believed any of what she told me about love, about hard choices, or if it was all just fear dressed up as wisdom. I'll never know. The fires saw to that. As for me, I kept moving. I took work where I could find it, fencing, freighting, guiding through rough country. In every town there was another saloon, another piano struggling against the noise, another man staring too long at his drink. Sometimes I caught my reflection and didn't recognize the eyes looking back. I wasn't the boy who walked into Milfield with a poster in his pocket. I wasn't the man who walked out carrying too much truth. I was something else, someone trying to live with both. When people asked my name, I gave them the first one that came to mind. I saved Daniel's boy for the quiet moments when I needed it. If there's anything worth saying after all this, it's simple. Stories grow teeth when nobody checks them. Lies multiply fast when fear waters them. And hate feeds on the pieces of truth it can twist. I let a poster tell me who to hunt. I let grief choose my target. I might have shot a good man if not for a few words spoken at the right moment. That thought will always haunt me. But another thought brings me back. A man on the edge of Devil's Creek stepping forward because it was the right thing to do. I can build a life on that. So this is the ending I'll keep. A son lays down a name that no longer fits. A stranger walks free because a dead man wrote the truth. A town learns that law and justice aren't always the same. And somewhere past Milfield, wind moves over an old tobacco pouch, smelling faintly of smoke and memory. When folks ask who raised me, I tell them the man who died 5 years ago at Devil's Creek. Not the one whose blood runs in my veins, and not the one who taught me that survival can make liars of us all. I'm the son of the man who stood between killers and a stranger he didn't know. That's the path I walk. That's the name I live by, whether anyone else believes it or not.